Thank you everyone so much for joining us today for the Progressive Nominating Caucus for Town Meeting Day 2025. I'm going to start by just giving a very brief overview of the agenda for today and some brief remarks. Then we'll turn it over to the nominations to talk more about the folks who are going to be running this year, as well as make sure that the ward clerks and inspectors of elections, as well as our city council candidates, have the time to be nominated this year. So, I want to start by just thanking those folks so much for running. It is never easy to put yourself out there and commit to our movement in that way. So I just so deeply appreciate everyone stepping up this year. I want to take a second to just acknowledge and recognize some folks who have done a lot of work to make this caucus possible and who have continued to dedicate a lot of time to our party and our movement. Want to start by recognizing our executive director, Josh Ronsky, who's done amount of work I can't even conceive to try to push forward values and support for working families in Vermont. I want to thank Zariah Hightower and Gil Livingston for acting as co-chair over this last year, for all the work that they've put in to continue to build our party and our city. And I want to thank our councilors and Mayor Mulvaney-Stanak. It is never easy walking into a $14 million budget deficit, and we are so proud and so honored that you are fighting for us in City Hall and working to deliver for Burlingtonians. So thank you. Very, very lastly, I want to thank everyone here who's joining us online for making sure that this caucus goes off without a hitch and that we have strong participation from across the city. It's so important to build our movement. So thank you so much. Very briefly, just going to get into the agenda for today so that you have a kind of a sense of where we're at. After I kind of get done these early remarks, I'm going to turn it over to Erhard Manke to talk about caucus rules and explain procedures. After that, we will turn it over to Mayor Mulvaney-Stanak, who will speak about the state of the city and the significance of this town meeting day. We'll turn it over to our nomination caucus after that, where we'll talk about, where folks will be nominated by nominators for 3 minutes, and then candidates will have 5 minutes for their speeches. This is going to include 3 city council seats, as well as ward clerks and inspectors of elections. Following this caucus, ballots will be emailed to participants beginning a little bit after 1 o'clock today. Voting will remain open until 3 p.m. Tomorrow, which was warned out in our nominating caucus memo. Finally, results will be shared with participants in the media following that initial voting period. So with that, I would like to get into a little bit about where we are in Burlington right now and the state of our democracy. Today, I'm a progressive because Burlington needs courageous leadership to tackle the root causes of our most pressing issues. The status quo is asking Burlingtonians to get by, not get ahead. And it's clear that our systems weren't built for us. They were built to continue to protect the ultra-wealthy and powerful who have continued to use the corrupting power of money in politics to stave off progressive initiatives. Right now, Burlington's vacancy rate is catastrophically low, and a dearth of affordable housing is driving folks out of our city. Meanwhile, nearly a quarter of residents live in poverty, and over 50% of renters spend more than 30% of their income just to stay housed. So for over 40 years, the Progressive Party has been providing a real alternative to this broken status quo, always rooted in a deep belief in economic, social, and climate justice. We organize for working people because we believe a better world is possible when we build it together and stand up against entrenched systems that protect the ultra-wealthy. So today we have 2 parties that I think recognize largely the same problems in our city, but we have very different solutions to those problems. And the way that we build our city is critical as we go forward. We have a Democratic Party right now accepting thousands of dollars every year from major landlord families and perpetuating housing inequality in our city. At the exact same time, the Progressive Party has never accepted a dime of corporate or big landlord money in Burlington. At the exact same time as this is going on, we have a Democratic Party that has eliminated fusion ticket voting, restricting collaboration and limiting voter choice in Burlington, a move that is not in line with the state law and in line with state precedent. At the exact same time, progressives are protecting voter choice and open democracy, empowering citizens to lead change. And at the moment, what we're looking at is a party that is picking and choosing citizen-led initiatives to move forward at the city council level. This party, our party, believes that we should empower citizens to make that decision and support more direct democracy in our city. And at this moment, the stakes are so high. As noted at the Democratic caucus last week, progressives have never held both the mayor's office and a majority on the council at the same time. But with so much on the line and so many people hurting right now, we can't afford business as usual. This is our opportunity to flip the council, lead with a bold vision, and govern to make Burlington a city where everyone can thrive. And we're leading with our values and policy initiatives that will create that city. That means community safety that ensures everyone feels and is safe in Burlington. That means tax fairness and solutions that don't drive working families out of our city. That means affordable housing and massive investments to address the housing crisis. And finally, that means climate action, local equitable solutions to the climate crisis that ensure a just transition. This movement isn't about parties. It's about people showing up for one another and creating a Burlington where everyone can thrive. Progressives, though, have been standing up to the powerful few for over 40 years because change never comes from the top on down. It comes from the bottom up. And when working people stand up, fight back, and demand a city that works for all of us. So I would like to turn it over to Erhard Manke to get into some of the caucus rules and how we're going to organize today. I want to also thank Erhard wholeheartedly for keeping me on track during this process and making sure this caucus runs well. So Erhard, if you would like to unmute and share your screen, we can get into caucus rules and procedures.
Great. Thanks so much, Nick. Hope my audio is coming through okay. For folks who don't know me, my name's Erhard Manka. I'm a longtime progressive living here in Burlington since the 70s, recently retired from being a Senate staffer for our Senator Bernie Sanders. And I'm going to go over some rules and procedures for the caucus. Give me 2 seconds, and I'm going to share my screen so you can all see, follow along visually while I go over these. And sorry to say, I always seem to get the really boring part of these caucus meetings going over the rules and procedures, but bear with me. Hey, here we go. Nick, just checking to make sure that the screen share is actually working since I can't tell. Great.
Yep.
Wonderful. So we have some eligibility requirements under our bylaws and state law, which require that any caucus voter must be first an eligible Burlington voter, support the Progressive Party platform, statement of principles. You need to consider yourself a member of the Progressive Party and also not be serving on either the Democratic or local Republican Party committee. Also, if you've voted in either the Democratic or Republican Party caucus, you would not be eligible to vote in our Progressive Party endorsement caucus. Our bylaws encourage caucus voters to base their endorsement on the following criteria. Candidates' affirmative endorsement of the Vermont Progressive Party state principles, which were there was a link to those when you registered for the caucus. Also, a candidate's commitment not to work in opposition to any provision in the party platform, a candidate's commitment not to work against any Progressive Party endorsed candidates, and also a candidate's commitment to caucus regularly with other progressive elected officials. District nominations, as Nick said, we're going to go through each district uh, in order, starting with East, then Central and South. First, we'll take nominating speeches for the council candidates for the respective district, then candidate speeches. Then Nick will call for and talk about school board and/or ward election official endorsements. Nick has heard from a number of folks who are interested in uh, election official endorsements, and we'll speak to that after candidate speeches. There's currently no council on candidate in the North District. Unfortunately, Nick's going to go through that. We do have a process for taking nominations from the floor, so to speak, since you can't directly comment to us, this being on YouTube and Facebook Live. If you are interested in being nominated from the floor, you should please email Nick or text him during the caucus, and his email address and cell phone number are posted on screen right now. Unfortunately, due to the meeting format, there is no opportunity for candidates to go through a Q&A during the caucus. We are going to be monitoring comments on YouTube and Facebook, so that if you do have an urgent question, you can post it there. And also, we're planning on having forums for the individual district candidates soon. Lastly, as Nick said, voting will be by electronic ballot. You will receive via email an OPA vote ballot. If you're registered for this caucus, you will automatically receive that after the caucus. If for some reason you don't receive a ballot or have trouble voting it once you receive it, please email or text Josh Vronsky, our executive director of the state party, and his contact information is also posted on screen right now. Likewise, if you are unable to vote electronically at all and for some reason need a paper ballot to vote, please make arrangements with Nick. And here again is his contact information. We don't anticipate this happening, but if for some reason we do have a contested endorsement for any of the positions, with more than 3 candidates, our policy is to use ranked choice voting. Electronic voting will close tomorrow at 3 p.m. So please vote your ballot expeditiously. And with that said, thank you, and I'll turn it back to Nick.
Thanks so much, Erhard. I appreciate that rundown. I think we probably all do. I'm going to turn it over to Mayor Mulvaney-Stanak to just give some words on the importance of this town meeting day and the state of the city.
Fast introduction. Thanks, Nick. Hello, everyone, and hope you all are having a good Saturday. I'm Mayor Emma Mulvaney-Stanak, and I'm pleased to be here on this winter day to help kick off the caucus for our city. It is a really important moment in time for us in terms of leadership of the city, a critical moment really about what comes next for the city. And I'm really proud a year ago of the kind of momentum that my campaign for mayor really kicked off in the city. It was a real moment of change, a moment of optimism, a moment of history, when we really look back at the number of important things that the city was asked to weigh in on in that historic mayoral race. Not only did we elect the first woman, I love talking about myself as a third person, but the first woman, which is really exhilarating and important. We elected also, I am the first out LGBTQ plus person to hold this role in the 150 plus years of the city's history. That is remarkable because it is 2025. And we know incredibly how important it is for folks with lived experience, with folks with professional and just the skill to be able to lead in the challenging times which we're living in, not only in the city of Burlington, the state of Vermont, but also just the country at large. We need people who are able to understand nuance. We need people to bring that lived experience right to the decision-making table and to balance out the voices that have, for too long, frankly, have been dominating a lot of our elected spaces. I went to the State House on Thursday. I was invited to hear the inaugural address by Governor Scott. And it was jarring. It was jarring to see how the faces have really changed in the legislature, not for the better in terms of the diverse representation of who lives here in the state of Vermont, but really in the opposite direction of folks who hold the dominant identities in our state, elected to more seats in the Senate and House. So we need more women, we need more folks of color, we need more queer folks, we need folks who don't hold these, again, dominant identities, be able to be at the table, to be able to help solve these complex challenges facing Vermont and, of course, the city of Burlington. But truly, it is an exciting time. There is a lot of change afoot here in the city of Burlington. There's a lot of elements in my campaign, the vision I stated for this city that have resonated with the majority of folks. And I continue to build coalitions and collaboration with folks who may not have been supporters of my campaign a year ago, because we're bringing people along in a way that shows that only truly collaboration and true good problem solvers are able to really bring this city forward. And so I'm excited about the hope that's been generated, the sense of what is possible, and also just frankly, the tangible successes we've had even in the first 9 months. And we need candidates like the candidates who are in front of you today as nominees for the progressive nomination here today, to be able to help move this work forward. This work that I have started in collaboration with the progressive counselors on city council, and at times Democrats on council as well, because we really need to be all in it together to advance these issues. As you might recall, I have 3 big priorities in this administration for this first term, and that's making sure the first one is having an effective and responsive community safety system that understands the nuance of community safety is much larger than just a police department. It's a critical component, but we need to look at this with the nuance that's needed of understanding to solve the fundamental issues of why people are unsafe in our streets, including folks who are unsheltered, but also why people feel unsafe in our communities, and how do we get to the root causes of that. The second priority, of course, being housing, making sure that we have ample amounts of housing, but that it's perpetually affordable for everyone of all income levels. This is a big task, knowing that we have a lot of work to do to densify our existing housing stock, but most importantly, have the infrastructure to even make that possible. I will come back to that in a minute, because there's some other questions on this town meeting day ballot that are critical for the success of the city going forward. And then the third priority is climate, making sure we have a comprehensive, known and clear citywide strategy for making sure that we're addressing climate issues, both in adaptation, but also mitigating our impact on the continued climate crisis for which we are living in. And we're going to do all of this, and we have been doing all of this in the first 9 months of my administration, with a deep commitment to equity, a deep commitment to affordability, good governance, and transparency. I continually hear how people feel very refreshed that they are hearing directly from city government in ways that they haven't either in a long time or perhaps never before, because it's critical that people understand what we're up against, but also how the city is moving forward and how people can be engaged in that important work. So just briefly in the first 9 months, because I think it's intangible and important to know that progressives have good governance skills, and that we're getting things done. And I need more members of this team of leading the city forward to help continue to do the good and tangible work of solving these problems. And the first one, out of the gate, in the first 2 months of being mayor, I closed a $14 million budget gap. That is no small potatoes, as they say, because our operating budget for the general fund is just north of $100 million. It was a sizable challenge, but we fixed that challenge, and we're continuing to fix the structural challenges within the city budgets by creating stronger policies, sometimes first ever policies that still don't exist within the city, and making sure we're using local tax dollars in sustainable ways to fund our critical services we need to make sure we have a vibrant city, and also services that are available and accessible to everyone, regardless of especially economics. We did that in 2 minutes, 2 minutes. It felt like 2 minutes in 2 months because of the strong collaboration and transparency I provided day one as mayor. We also we made sure that the balancing of that budget gap was done in an equitable way to make sure it was not put all onto residents, residential taxpayers, but balanced among the commercial and residential taxpayers to make sure that we are putting right in tangibly the commitment to affordability and always having that front of mind. This budget that we were able to pass for this current year includes some deep investments in that nuanced definition of community safety, of course, because as you might recall, it included continuing our community response team's work, which is the work that was initially a pilot within the Burlington Fire Department to have first responders be able to support folks who might be overdosing or perceived to have been overdosing. We hired a first ever senior advisor on community safety who's deep and hard at work at helping to navigate the leadership transition at the Burlington Police Department. And we invested funds in new and innovative ways to take a public health response to the unsheltered emergency we're still facing right now in the city of Burlington over the summer and fall months. It ended with a unanimous vote. And that is, I emphasize that because when we have strong, smart, capable leadership that's fixing the problems, the structures of our budget, as well as starting to tackle these complex policy issues, we can get to a place of compromise and unanimous support on good, strong policies. And that was the budget. We also launched 30 community safety advisors to help really start to identify immediate action steps that we can take to make our community safer, and a range from improving our public education on who to call, when to call, and why. So folks are no longer in the public only relying on calling for police for support on what is needed in our community. And we continue to improve that our safety guide and our ability for folks to get support when they need. We also are continuing to use data to inform our decisions related to critical policy points around our community safety response, which includes our recruitment and how we recruit police officers and what does the data and the trends tell us. We're elevating and using our data analyst team, our analysis team, in new and innovative ways to really understand those trends, see how they crisscross and compare to other hiring trends and challenges in the state and elsewhere in the country to make really strong new recommendations of how do we rebuild a police department that matches our values, is responsive and accountable to our community, and is able to really get us to the next place we need in terms of a responsive part of our responsive community safety system. We're also starting to continue to push in new ways around case management. I mean, we have a lot of people suffering in our community from a lot of coexisting realities of substance use disorder or mental health challenges, insecure housing, and things are feeling really dire. However, we're bringing new models forward, including a concept called a situation table that we're innovating to continue to push in ways that can wrap around services for those folks who are at the highest risk in our community for harming themselves or others in our community, and doing this from a humane and best practice kind of way, because we are looking to other communities when we haven't figured it out here to just take, again, those best evidence-based and research-based policies. We're embarking on a new chief search process for police chief. And I really see that now 9 months in, how important having the right leadership in each of our departments in the city is. And so this will be a robust effort to engage our community, to hear what you need in our next police chief, what our stakeholders and partners need in the next chief of police, as well as, of course, the rank and file within the police department. I'm excited to embark on this work because I think this is a critical moment for us collectively all to take a corner, turn the corner on moving forward with state-of-the-art 21st century policing and making sure Burlington's stamp is on that in terms of what we need and expect here in our city, including by extension the successful vote of our charter change in November to really finally get a step forward in our oversight of policing as a community. We hired an OPC, which is the Overdose Prevention Center, a project implementation specialist just before the holidays. And she's getting hard at work trying to engage potential providers to bring this critical life-saving tool online and to also navigate all the new and unknown legal waters as we try to figure out how to still bring this critical tool forward in Burlington to support folks with substance use disorder to be able to find a path towards treatment, to create one more place where folks can have a trusted, low barrier way to enter in and engage in critical relationships that will hopefully get them the support they need for living with this really dire disease. A really dorky one is our initiative on Modern Gov. my government structure lovers out there will know that part of governance is also making sure that the functions and structure of government are smart and reflective of what we need today. So we're applying both principles of participatory budgeting as well as the elements of transparency that I continue to talk about for figuring out how do we collectively want to look at our structure of government. What core services do we need? We're diving deep within all 18 city departments to ask that question to make sure we build a budget that is reflective of our community's priorities and then is funded in ways that are affordable. And this includes making sure we look at our tax policy on the local level. And we've launched a tax fairness working group that will start meeting at the end of January just to bring some recommendations forward on how do we collect revenue for the city? How is it fair? How is it just? How is it equitable? How do we make sure that we stop losing the economic diversity that makes this city so great? Because our city is at a critical moment of becoming unaffordable, a place where people can't afford to find a home, can't afford to find an apartment. These kinds of structural changes of right-sizing our city structure and government, getting clear on our core services, and making sure we raise the revenue in equitable ways is a way that we will build a vibrant and thriving Burlington. To the point of equity, our Racial Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging Office has really been in a place of instability for many years now. And I am proud to say that we've moved it off of one-time funding with no plan in place. And I moved it into permanent funding from our general fund so that we continue to stabilize and move this critical part of government permanently within our city structure to make sure it can be a place of both advising and supporting deep equity work within the city and then the spheres of influence we have as city government. Two other just quick things I'll wrap up on because you have some exciting candidates I want you to hear from who are going to help make all of this that much more possible in the coming months. Is also on this ballot because hopefully these candidates will receive your support, and I'll come back to that in just a minute because these candidates are quite remarkable this round. We have three important infrastructure bonds which we're bringing forward on the same ballot that these candidates will be on for March 4th. And they include two bonds related to water, our lake bond and our water bond, which will help us advance those climate and housing priorities I mentioned earlier. And then, of course, our GO bond, which is our general obligation bond, to make sure that the infrastructure for which we have really stepped away from investing in recent years gets the kind of investment we need to make sure that the city of Burlington thrives and that this becomes a home and a place where visitors and residents alike can be able to really set down roots and have an infrastructure that is not failing underneath them as you make this city our home. Finally, and on a somber note, the continued challenge facing our unsheltered our neighbors is a critical one, and is one which over the summer we really pushed new public health initiatives to make sure that we were supporting folks who have no other option other than to live outside in encampments. So we supported some basic infrastructure to support those folks being able to exist. We have 60 emergency seasonal beds coming online within a matter of days, finally, to help take the pressure off of folks living on the streets. And we are updating the city's cold weather policy because the state's adverse weather policy, which is when there's an extreme cold or extreme weather, frankly, the state policy has changed so much that it is failing the state and it's failing the city of Burlington. So the city, under my leadership, is moving forward with more reasonable public health driven policy to be able to open up emergency shelters in extreme conditions sooner than the state would. And I am proud of our team in the city because we need to make sure that we're protecting folks from the very dangerous elements of a cold Vermont winter. So to these candidates, as I wrap up my quick remarks here, or not so quick remarks, as I said, I'm very impressed with the caliber of candidates that the party is presenting to all of you to consider for your support today. We truly need to have two branches of government. I've never thought about this more since moving from the legislative branch over to the executive branch. Both branches of government need to be clear-eyed on why you are serving and what the purpose is. The purpose is we need city government to work. We need folks to come to the table who understand that compromise and collaboration and vision are all important elements to hold together. We need folks to come to the table who understand the importance of relationships and colleagueship and being able to disagree, but not paralyze government from being able to operate and really deal with the basic needs and everyday needs of folks here in the city of Burlington. We need folks who are policy thinkers, who use evidence and data to drive your policy decisions and initiatives, and not just partisanship, who designed to undercut whoever might be the mayor or whoever might be the president of the city council. When we use evidence and data, we will make better policy. We will be better leaders for the city of Burlington. And I need partners on the city council who are committed to that. And the candidates before you today are those types of candidates. And finally, and most importantly, one must be really clear on what your values are. And the reason why I have been so proud to be a progressive over so many years is that these candidates really align with the core commitments and values of the Vermont Progressive Party, which is a clear commitment to economic, social, and racial justice, and always using that lens when developing policy, not forgetting about it and having it be an afterthought, but having it be a driving force and a lens for which you look at all of the complex challenges that are facing us here in the city. And so with that, the momentum is here. I need to keep this momentum going as your mayor, and I really need partners who are at the sitting at that table with me around from the city council to keep building, keep pushing Burlington to a place where we can thrive, a place where everyone can thrive here in Burlington. So we're in it together, and I'm really proud to at least be on screen with some of these candidates, and I hope you will offer them your support, and then better yet, your resources, your time, your volunteer hours to help get them elected on March 4th. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mayor, and thank you for the work that you and the counselors are doing right now. Yeah, so I want to kind of just very brief overview of what the nominations are going to look like. We're going to go in order of East, Central, South, and then I will talk briefly about North District. And I'm going to just ask, we're going to go in order, and I'll just ask folks to unmute as we go. So we're going to start with East District. And I am going to ask Selena Colburn to unmute to give a nominating speech for Kathy Alwell.
Thank you so much, Nick, and what a pleasure to get to nominate Kathy. I'm really, truly delighted to be nominating you, Kathy, to serve as our East District City Councilor. I first got to know Kathy when I served in that role myself, and then subsequently as a state representative. And Kathy was just one of my most engaged constituents, someone who collaborated with everyone, served the neighborhood and the city with unrelenting commitment. I've loved getting to know her and just getting to witness her deep care and love for our community. Her ability to connect with people and her great sense of humor are such a plus in our collective work. And both have helped me just personally get through many a long neighborhood planning assembly meeting or town meeting day, standing out there in the cold, where she could always be counted on to show up to support the candidates and issues that matter to her. And that's really the bottom line about Kathy at a time when we're seeing so many fractures in our community and so many folks stepping back from public engagement. Kathy just keeps showing up. And first and foremost for the youth in our community. I hope you're going to hear more about her accomplishments from the woman herself, but I want to highlight that Kathy has worked at the King Street Youth Center, the Sarah Holberg Center, has started after-school programming in our community, has helped secure funding for youth learners, and for many years served as our East District School Commissioner, where she could always, always be relied on to advocate for equity in our schools and for Burlington families. And she didn't just do this at the local level. Sorry, I'm getting a text. So I wanted to make sure you all could hear me. You can hear me, right? She didn't just do this at the local level. But she was a really important voice as the state enacted an improved pupil weighting formula that recognized the real costs of educating students living in poverty or for whom English is a second language. And that was a fight that brought important and much needed resources to Burlington School District. Kathy knows our city, she knows our neighborhood, she's built deep, meaningful relationships with policymakers, community members, educators, and youth over many decades. It's so important, I think, that we have an intergenerational council that includes youth perspectives and those of longtime residents. And Kathy's record of public service makes her the rare candidate who can bring both of those perspectives and many more. So Kathy, just thank you for stepping up again And I'm so grateful to you. And I just urge you all to join me in supporting Kathy and to get involved in her campaign and to get behind this amazing, amazing woman and candidate. Thank you, Kathy.
Great. Thank you so much, Selena. And Kathy, you can go ahead and unmute on your end if you want to get into your
Okay.
speech.
Thank you, Selena, so much for that introduction. And thank all of you for coming today. My name is Kathy Alwell. I'm running for the East District City Council seat. I've lived in Burlington over 3 decades and in Ward 1 for 26 years. My husband and I raised our 3 sons here and sent them all to the Burlington schools. I love our city, and I've spent a lifetime trying to make it as safe, livable, fair, and more affordable. I served as East District School Commissioner from 2016 to 2023. I am a retired social worker, having worked for both King Street Center and Sarah Holbrook Community Center. I started the new North End Youth Center in 1994. I helped the Burlington School District apply for federal funds that support the after-school programs in all 9 Burlington schools. I ran the after-school program at Hunt Middle School and the tuition-free Burlington Middle School summer program. I serve on the board of Burlington Students Foundation and on the board of Gadakina, a multi-generational endeavor to strengthen and revitalize the cultural knowledge and identity of Native American women and their families from across New England. Burlington, just like this country, is in a very precarious situation. Increased poverty, homelessness, unchecked mental illness, and are often leading to drug and alcohol abuse, and a tax structure which cannot and does not do enough or give us enough funding to deal with these human needs, let alone address the aging infrastructure needs. Our municipal and state property tax systems are unfair and untenable. We need to restructure our tax system to make it more equitable. It is time to increase the taxes on the wealthiest Vermonters and Burlingtonians. Some of the work will require state action and charter changes. In the meantime, we need to support Mayor Emma's work to use existing powers of the city to balance our budget in a fair way, not on the backs of working families and renters. The vast majority of Burlingtonians cannot afford to buy a home and struggle to afford rent, and we are experiencing record levels of houselessness. We must pursue a fair MOU with the University of Vermont and statewide legislation that requires them to house their students and cap enrollment. We must increase the amount of funding we allocate to the city's housing trust to support more affordable housing. And we must continue to turn up the pressure on predatory and absentee landlords. Healthcare costs are out of control. UVM Healthcare Network has a monopoly on healthcare in Vermont, controlling upwards of 60% of the market, the highest of a hospital in the US. And Vermonters pay the highest average premium in the US. We must work with labor unions, regulators, and other partners to keep pressure on the UVM Health Network. They continue to overcharge patients for services, which drives up healthcare costs, which in turn are the leading cause for massive property tax increases we've faced over the last few years. Public safety in Burlington should not be a partisan issue, but unfortunately it has become one. In 2020, the City Council voted to decrease the number of police through attrition and to use the funds for a cahoots model of reform, which would hire social workers and healthcare professionals to respond to community instances that were not in need of police to de-escalate them. It is true, there's a lack of trust that may be in part due to the 2020 vote, but we must mention the numerous ethical violations on the part of two successive chiefs, which resulted in their firing, and use of force cases by officers, which cost the city millions of dollars to settle. According to a recent employee survey at BPD, the police have needed an updated police station. They rely too heavily on overtime hours because of low staffing and are feeling a lack of trust or support between police and the community. This was true for the department before, after, and independent of the 2020 vote. Mayor Emma has responded by increasing the BPD's budget by more in a single year than any other year under a previous administration. The mayor's office is pursuing getting a new police station while recognizing the city's current tough financial state. The mayor has accomplished a lot in the short time she has been in office. And should I be elected, I will work with her to right this city. I am seeking the progressive nomination here today, and I hope to earn your vote on town meeting day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kathy, for that. I'm going to turn it over now to the Central District, first for our city council candidates, and then we're going to briefly talk about ward clerks in Central this year. So we're going to start off. Jean, if you'd like to unmute for your nominating speech for Milo Grant.
Why, thank you, Nick. And thank you, everybody. I'm Gene Bergman, and it is a great honor to nominate Milo Grant to be our candidate for the Central District. I can really think of no one who can and will better represent wards 2 and 3. Milo, as we know, is a fierce advocate for our part of the city, with a tenacity born of her lived experience as a Black woman, a working class woman, and a resident of our old North End for decades. I first met Milo when she joined our union effort at the Burlington Free Press about 35 years ago, and I saw right then her commitment to justice. It's reflected in her music career, a DJ for 40 years, giving voice to peoples and cultures pushed to the margins, providing a refuge, a cultural bunker, especially for Black and brown folks trying to navigate Vermont. It is reflected in her strong voice for community safety on the Police Commission, on the special committee to review policing policies, and as the chair of the City Council's Public Safety Committee. Milo is fearless in her search and our search for safety and police accountability. Fearless in pushing for a properly staffed police department and all of the other essential resources we need to deal with our mental health, our substance use, our homeless, and our downtown theft and violence issues. She stood up to have us do the right thing while standing against allowing our downtown and our one neighborhoods to be the dumping ground for all of the things that non-progressive councilors on the Hill and in the more suburban wards have blocked from their neighborhoods. Things like emergency shelters for homeless people facing below zero temperatures that we felt this week. Things like the increases in density called for in the neighborhood code that we fought over a few months ago. Milo is relentless in her advocacy to make our city affordable and livable, especially for her constituents in the old North End and downtown. She feels the pain of our people who are dealing with outrageously high rents and city property taxes that stretch the budgets of low and moderate income homeowners like herself. And while reminding us that we have to invest in our community if we are all going to thrive. She sees the aging infrastructure and displacement and the regressive municipal property tax. And as our district's counselor, she has said clearly and forcefully, enough. We need a change. I am so lucky to have Milo as a counselor sitting next to me, fighting the good fight, keeping me grounded in the realities of inequities that we are fighting and the people who are affected by them. I need Milo Grant to be with me in this fight. We need Milo Grant to be with us in this fight. And this is why it is such an honor to nominate for our party's nomination, my sister, Milo Grant. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gene. Milo, if you'd like to go ahead and unmute.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. I'm not sure I can top that. And Kathy, it is so wonderful that you have stepped up as well, because I know from our interactions how much you care about this community and care about our kids as well, because our kids have really been lost a lot in the conversations. And I know from a public safety standpoint, we actually have our children being targeted in ways that are not okay in this city. I am seeking the progressive nomination to run for reelection because there is still so much to be done. These first almost 2 years have really gone by very, very quickly. The learning curve is so deep. And I came in feeling like I knew a lot about how things are working in the city from my experience as a police commissioner, because I was really digging in deep with regards to the root causes of how the police department was working operationally and continuing to have a number of issues. So I would say that my continued priority would be community safety, which has really been affecting the one and the downtown area. We were kind of the canaries in the coal mine. I've said that many times. People weren't listening when we were advising what was happening, that we were seeing more drug activity, that we were seeing more, you know, crimes of opportunity, crimes of poverty, more packages going, more cars being ruffled through, more invasiveness on our porches. We were seeing this, and then it was becoming more in the public. But we have this classism in our city that wasn't and didn't want to recognize certain things that were happening in the inner wards as long as they didn't affect the outer wards. Now they're affecting everyone. But we still have dramatic issues. Jean just referred to a conversation we were having, which there is something being put forward to prevent emergency housing shelters from being put in all areas of the city. It is a really, it was a sickening meeting for me. Saying that you had a constituent that had to pay $10,000 to put up a new fence is not the flex you think it is. It's not. People in our areas can't go putting up fences. And is this how we want to live? This is not the way to get the vitality back to our city. It's not the way to get the energy to build community, where we have to look at the root causes, the continued feeling amongst some of our fellow counselors that you cannot look at these root causes is very alarming. Telling me that graffiti is the number one issue in our city. Graffiti is not the number one issue in our city. Is it an issue in our city? Of course it is, but it's not the number one issue. So to say something like that is to really be out of touch with what's going on. A neighborhood code passed. There were some amendments that I didn't fully support, but I believe that it's going to move our housing initiatives forward. There are projects lining up in the queue now, but the cost of housing and how long it takes for the development, it's not going to be as fast as we like. I think we do need to continue to work on the NIMBYism. We need to have a city-wide view. We need to work with our counselors and our neighbors who are sowing division to create a city-wide view. Someone in the South End needs to understand what's happening in the one. Someone in the New North End needs to understand what's happening downtown. Downtown needs to understand what it's like to live in the East, in areas where there's a lot of student housing, as well as parts of the New North End, and how does that affect us all? as opposed to saying we're going to silo ourselves and only be concerned with what's happening here. I have found that this mentality is especially damaging when it comes to talking about how we're going to expand housing, especially affordable housing, how we are going to take steps to get the discussions going again with UVM around the MOU, and being honest about holding them accountable to something that's fair for us, and getting them to understand that the crisis exists and how it's affecting their students. Students are getting more vocal about the poor housing that UVM is currently providing, and they're getting very vocal about the cost of housing on UVM campus as well as in the city. The cost of housing in our city is affecting our economy. When downtown businesses say we don't have local visitors, a lot of people right in the one don't feel they can shop downtown. It's not for them. They go downtown for coffee, go downtown for meals, maybe hit the hardware store, but we have to look at that too. How do we do things downtown that are going to attract everyone in the city? Community safety, community safety, community safety. The BPOA survey is astonishingly revealing. I think everyone needs to read it in detail. I think it needs to be a blueprint with regards to how we proceed to rebuild that department. With a change in leadership, we have a real opportunity. I liken it to we're removing a cancer tumor and now we're going through the chemo. And then after that, we've got to heal the body. Fresh leadership with a new point of view, a point of view that is going to encompass the balance that was mentioned earlier. The city has been lacking balance. The departments lack the balance. It's been so insular that it hasn't looked at the root causes that led up to the 2020 vote. Everything did not stop at 2020. We had lawsuits before 2020. We had the incident in 2017 at Roosevelt Park where New American kids were clearly being harassed, treated heavy-handedly, and a white resident fought for 2 years, took it to the Vermont Supreme Court to get that footage released so that everyone could see what our community already knew, what their friends knew, what their siblings knew, what their families knew, what the neighbors knew. To have a supervisor say, hey, if we get a call here, people are leaving in handcuffs. Never would have done that in a park that had predominantly white children. Never would have treated white kids in that matter. I recently rewatched that video of that body cam footage. Those children asked for help twice. You're a cop. Can't you help us get the phone back? You're a police officer. Can't you do, your job? And when being ignored, they did not respect those officers. So we have to look at that. We have to use some of this as training material, I believe. I think we have to use 21st century tools for recruitment and retention. How is it our party is constantly calling for recruitment and retention, and in being told that and somehow we're being partisan? It is clear from the BPOA survey, the officers want a good recruitment and retention program. The officers want to be treated fairly, not only by the public, not only by the city administration, but also internally. There were internal issues that were made very loud and clear. I could go on for that for days, but I won't. I will say I echo everything that Kathy said about housing. Climate initiatives are going to be extremely important. I'm very concerned about the removal of funding for public transportation. We are really taking steps back there. And it's a chicken versus the egg. More people would use public transportation if we had more routes, but we can't create more routes if we don't have more people using public transportation, and we don't have the finances. So that's something that we really need to look at, because that really affects a lot of poor and working class people. And it also affects people who do drive. I commute to work by car. If I had the routes that I needed, I could commute by bus on most days. On days where I have a city council meeting where I have to be back in Burlington at a particular time, I would have to take my car, but I don't have the option. If my employer moves to Williston, the first thing I thought about was I have bus options now in Williston. Equity issues, equity in policing, equity across our city. I talk a lot about it. I need to do more about it. I need to engage more people about it. Um, I was just reminded that a particular issue that is happening in the city where there was great harm done to someone, where have I been on that, right? I can say that I've been overwhelmed with our community safety issues, but that's not really an excuse. So I've got some thinking to do about that. And I hope for the opportunity to continue. And I'm sure I'm over my 5 minutes, so thank you all for listening. Thank you all for your consideration to nominate me to continue with the reelection. Appreciate it. Love you all. And I'm very, very thankful to have the support of all of you. And go Mayor Emma, because you are everything. And we have to, the idea that the mayoral election was so definitive, with such a fantastic coalition of people of all different backgrounds and parties, and there is still attempts to sabotage the work being done by our mayor, by the city's mayor, is deeply troubling. Thank you all.
Thanks so much, Milo, for that. And I'm just going to briefly speak about two other names that we're going to have on the ballot this year in Central District. So Wendy Coe is a very long-time ward clerk who is going to be running for re-election in Ward 2 this year. And Sam Powers will also be running for re-election this year in Ward 3. If you are in Ward 2 or Ward 3, you will see Wendy or Sam on your electronic ballot when we send it out. And I just want to take a second to really thank both those folks for all the work they've put in over these years to make sure our elections run fair and democratically. With that, I'm going to turn it over to South District and Jessica Oski to nominate Jen Monroe Zakaris.
Hi, thank you. And good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jessica Oski. I've lived on Charlotte Street in the South End for about 20 years, but I've been a resident of Burlington since 1982. As an independent voter, I want to thank you for the opportunity to address your caucus today, or this caucus. It's my honor and privilege to come before you to nominate a candidate who embodies the values and the vision that I personally hold dear and I believe are shared by the Burlington Progressive Party, Jen Monroe Zakaris. Although she's lived in Burlington for a relatively short period of time, Jen has fully committed to making Burlington a better, more inclusive, and sustainable city. Jen is smart, and her experience naturally leads her to a data-driven and research-informed approach to public policy and problem solving. She's an advocate for affordable housing, climate action, and social justice, issues that directly impact every one of us here. Whether she's organizing on the front lines to protect our environment, supporting local small businesses, or standing up for marginalized voices, Jen can be counted on to bring people together to create positive change. It's not just her dedication that sets her apart, it's her real presence, her ability to listen and be present and engage and to lead with compassion. She recognizes the strength of the diversity that we have in the city and the power of collective action. She's a kind of leader who will not only fight for pragmatic, progressive policies, but will also work to make sure that a diversity of Burlington residents' voices are always considered. As we look to the future, we need leaders like Jen who will push for bold and achievable solutions to the challenges facing Burlington, whether it's building an economy that works for all, ensuring equity in our city policies and programs, developing and implementing public safety initiatives that are fair and effective, or tackling the climate crisis head on. Jen is the person to lead us forward. For all these reasons and more, I'm proud to nominate Jen as the Progressive Party candidate for the South District seat on our Burlington City Council. She's the kind of leader that we need, that I'm looking for to continue moving our city forward, and I know she'll make us all proud. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jessica. Jen, you can go ahead and unmute.
Hi, everyone. Jessica, thank you for such a generous and thoughtful nomination. It really means a lot to me. Hey, everyone. So my name is Jennifer Monroe Zakaris. Most folks call me Jen. I'll be running for the City Council seat representing Burlington's South District. So this encompasses wards 5 and 6 in the south end of town. I live in the red house at the top of Bayview Street with my partner of 17 years, Michael, and our very sweet and spunky young daughters, Mia, who is 8, and Emmeline, who is 5. We call her Emmy. We're also lucky to have a lot of our extended family in town living just down the road from us. And Michael and I love raising our kids here and rooting our family here. And Burlington is truly home for us. Just a little bit about me. I was born in a small town in upstate New York, a town called Rome. It's about 4 hours from here in the Syracuse and Utica area. I hail from hardy working class stock with deep roots in dairy farming, service industries, and military service. My parents had me when they were young, and my father enlisted in the Marine Corps when I was born to support his family. So I grew up moving every few years or so to different military bases, including as far away as in Japan. College took me to UNC Chapel Hill as one of very few in my family to ever complete a bachelor's degree, and I later earned a master's degree in public health from Columbia University. So in terms of what I do for work, my public health training brought me into the field of medicine, where I work with physician scientists to conduct health-related research. My expertise is in something that we call the social and structural determinants of health. What that means is that I work to understand how the conditions of our life shape our physical and mental health, things like poverty, food insecurity and homelessness, gender inequality and discrimination. Most recently, I helped to found a university center that is focused on studying how climate change shapes our physical and mental health, especially for our most vulnerable populations. A key part of my role with that center is to communicate complex ideas and research findings to policymakers in the public, and in ways that kind of increase their engagement in using those research findings. My professional work is complemented by deep community engagement here in town. My eldest is a second grader at the Integrated Arts Academy, and I've served on the PTO there since she was in kindergarten. And I also volunteer in the classrooms there every Monday, which I've been doing again since she first entered the school. And it's just, I love getting to know the kids and getting to know their families. So I'm pretty deeply rooted in the school community. I also help help coordinate a local mutual aid network that supports members of our community to get the resources that they need to live. Sometimes this can be food, sometimes it's a car seat or a ride, sometimes it's help with navigating social services. So these experiences really shape my views on how working families are doing and what we could be doing better as a city. Like so many, I share the serious concerns we all have about housing, affordability, and substance use crises in town. We know the problem, so I'm not going to spend a lot of my time here today repeating them. The question is, how do we solve them? My daughter Mia will be graduating from high school in about 10 years, which is kind of wild to me, to be honest. And I find myself asking, what kind of a city will Burlington be at that point? And what choices can we make today that's going to set us on a path of prosperity and well-being, and not just for some of us, but for all of us? So to me, affordability shouldn't actually be our goal. Thriving should be what we're after. For people of all ages and all backgrounds to live and flourish alongside one another. So what exactly does that mean for Burlington? It means that everyone deserves to be sheltered and to have a home. We need to invest in more affordable housing across the entire housing continuum, from shelters to ownership, that meets the needs of people at different stages of their lives. We also need to use strategies that protect our communities from gentrification and displacement. Ending chronic homelessness is possible. Cities across the country are making a lot of exciting progress in this area, and we should set our sights on that. Thriving means that taxes are crucial to the well-being of our city, but they need to be fair and manageable for households. Like so many of us, I experienced the shock of my recent property tax increase when my bill arrived in the mail. It's simply not sustainable. At the state level, we should work to decouple school funding from property values and instead base it on income. At the local level, we can take advantage of municipal tax policy to ease the burden of taxes now. And we need to smartly invest in our city infrastructure to safeguard that affordability into the long term. Thriving means that safety for all of us in the long term begins with ensuring that none of us has to live in perpetual crisis. We need evidence-based approaches to community safety that reduce harms and save lives now, while also addressing root causes so that Burlington residents, all Burlington residents, can feel safe and secure over the long term. I do understand the fatigue and impatience that many repeatedly express. The need for a sense of security and reassurance is real and perfectly understandable. It comes up in every conversation that I have. I think it's the task of our elected officials to make the case for harm reduction approaches to their constituents in ways that are clear, easy to understand, and demonstrates results. And this is an area that I would be fully committed to. Thriving means that climate resilience is a necessity for our children's sakes, but also as well as our own. We used to think that Vermont was immune from the ravages of the climate crisis. Until 2 back-to-back years of devastating floods and algae blooms that are rendering our beautiful lake unusable. We are not immune at all. We need to be ready for the climate effects of the next decade, and we also need to take advantage of the enormous economic opportunity that greening our economy presents to us. Finally, thriving means leaning in and trusting in our ability to come together to make decisions and solve problems. We need to invest in our civic infrastructure to create more ways for Burlingtonians to channel their voices and concerns into meaningful collective action. Things like participatory budgeting, citizen assemblies. There are so many creative approaches happening all over the country that we can learn and borrow from. And let's be honest, we need more ways and better ways to engage than public forum at city council meetings. Like my Democratic Party opponent in the city council race, I support Burlington and I'm deeply invested in its success. But loving Burlington isn't enough. I also bring a set of experiences and skills that are immediately relevant to this moment. First, I don't talk about things like harm reduction and housing first approaches as political slogans. While my values certainly align with these approaches, I also know that there is extensive evidence that they work, and they are considered the gold standard even by our own federal government. This is about problem solving, it's not about party affiliation. Second, I'm the kind of person who can work well with just about anyone. In my day job, I manage large research teams working on multi-million-dollar grants from the National Institutes of Health. And I'll be honest, there are some big egos and high stakes in those rooms. I know how to navigate high-stress environments, conflict, and disagreement. The tight-knit military communities that I grew up in tended to be politically conservative and taught me how to maintain meaningful relationships across personal differences. They also taught me a lot, frankly, about community and showing up for one's neighbor. For me, people in the military and in police departments are exactly that, people. My uncle was a cop, and many men in my extended family have served our military. I know how to hold my own with these groups, but I also know how to listen, and I know how to find common ground. I believe that we can all find common ground in Burlington, and more than that, I think that we can be a beacon for effective self-governance and vibrant local democracy. And given what this country is going to face in the next 4 years under the Trump presidency, that matters now more than ever. So these are hard times, but I feel good about living in Burlington. I think Burlington's best days are ahead of us, and I believe in our ability to get there. And this is fundamentally what drives me to run for city council. So thank you all for listening.
Thanks so much, Jen. So those are the 3 folks that we have pre-qualified for our caucus today. I'm just going to briefly check my email to make sure that we don't have any further nominations from the floor. I don't have any right now. So we do have North District remaining as a place where we would love to hear from folks in the community who might be in wards 4 or ward 7. Who might be interested in stepping up. We also have an inspector of elections up in Ward 7, Trish O'Kane, who is going to be seeking re-election. So if you are in Ward 7, you will see Trish on your electronic ballot when we send that out. I want to take just a little bit of time to close and thank everyone for joining us today. That is the conclusion of our nominating caucus. Everyone watching from home, thank you for tuning in. You will start to see electronic ballots go out in the next hour. And as I said, the voting period will conclude at 3 p.m. tomorrow. Thank you so much again for joining us, and please feel free to email me if there's any issues with the ballot. We will sign off there.